guys, firstly I'd like to apologise. This is the Peugeot 103 I was working on not that long ago, well actually ages ago. Still haven't got the wheels sorted yet for painting, so it's taken me that long to get all the powder coat paint off, unfortunately. So rather than just work on one bike at once, which is what I was planning on doing this year, I'm going to do little side projects as well, and this is one of them. For a start, this is where the workshop is supposed to be going. I'm ready to lay roadstone before I put the concrete base down, but as yet not ready. I have a storage unit, everything's going in, including this thing. So this is a cycle motor or cycle attachment, which is normally like an auxiliary engine attached to a bicycle. However, these, so far as I know, are the only brand that made them straight out the factory, already attached to the bike. So this is it. So it's a Velosolex 330, built between 1953 and 1955. This one's a 1954 model, so right in the middle. There's several different versions of these. I'm not entirely sure which version of a 330 it is, but it's basically the second type produced. The number of the model number corresponds to how many were sold at the time. So this was designed when there was 330,000 of them sold, and they ended up being 3800, I think, was the last model. So they made them all the way up to the 1990s, I think, or early 2000s they stopped making them. They eventually moved it to Hungary. This one is a French bike, as they all were. They were designed immediately after the war to get the population mobile again. The first ones were 45cc, and I believe this is one of the first models with a 49cc motor in it. As you can see, mounted over the front wheel, friction drive. There's your clutch. Lift the engine off the front wheel, unless I knock the bike over. This one doesn't have a stand, hence why it's not staying upright very well. Lots of quirky things about this bike. The first most noticeable one being these reverse levers, which look brilliant. This is the decompressor lever, and as I understand it, I've never actually had a go on one of these that runs, but that's your decompression. You pull that lever forward as it is now, so it rests on the front wheel, pedal for a bit and then let go, and basically that's decompress, that's full throttle, and it springs back to full throttle all the time. So far as I gather, it's always running at full throttle. You just pedal it to the speed you want. Maximum speed should be about 18 miles an hour. So another interesting thing about these, this is the fuel tank, and this is the carb. The fuel tank is lower than the carb, and the way they get around this is to have a little fuel pump on the front, which does away with lots of things. Because there's a constant stream of fuel running through, there's your carb, it doesn't need a float bowl, because basically it's always at the level that it would overflow back into the tank. So there's your float level. No float required. Main jet, here's the choke. The intake for the engine and the exhaust manifold are the same item, basically. They're all as one. And then the exhaust comes down to this little joint here, and that's your actual exhaust pipe here with a can on the end. I imagine it smells lovely while you're riding it. Right in your face. So the brake adjustment's cool. You just press that in. I won't do it because I've adjusted these brakes now. But you press it in, twist it, and then let go, and it just comes out. It's on like a square bolt, which is captive. What else can I tell you? The bell is a two-tone bell. This one's not very well, but you sort of get the idea. And if you take the top off it, there is a bulb holder in there for a spare bulb, if you can get it back on. There we are. So other interesting things about these, that's the airbox on the top there. It would have a metal cowl here with a headlight built in. As you can see, all the cables, like the brake cables there, go inside the handlebars, and if we come around the other side, you can see there's your lighting cable and your rear brake. They go inside the frame, and the lighting cable pops out there. That's my leg. Let's follow it up there, and it's just electrically joined by a bolt in mid-air for some reason. There's no rear light either on this one. It does need one. It's a French import, so it's not been registered in this country. Block brakes, front and rear. This part is apparently very rare and hard to come across if it's not there, so that's cool. And it's still got a bit of the old gold pinstriping on it. It's got the special auto-cycle tyres, Hutchinson ones. These ones are cracked, unfortunately, so I'm going to get some new ones. But what does it say on the side of them? Can you read that? No. We'll look at that another time. So problems with this bike. So far it won't run. There's supposed to be some springs inside here which pull the engine down onto the front wheel. So if you want to get decent friction on it, you actually have to push the lever forward as you're riding it at the moment, which is making it quite difficult for me to try and start it. So I've been trying to drill start it at the moment. It's obviously missing the front cowl and headlight and the rear headlight, tail light, sorry. No stand. What else is wrong with it? Oh, the ignition cover's missing. Massive coil on it. So let's see if we can get working on it. Okay, so the first thing to point out here is I've had this for a couple of weeks already. I haven't been able to film any of it really yet, so I'm just running through what I've done so far with you to keep you up to date with what's going on. So first of all, let's just try and start it here. Now the way to do it normally, if I had two hands, would be to decompress it, then spin this up and then let go of the decompressor. But as it is, I've only got one hand because I'm holding this. So this is a 14mm socket on a drill. The starter thing, the choke has depart written on it, which is quite cool. I'm going to give it 2/3 choke, and then we'll see where we go from here. Give it a while to pump some fuel in. Remember, it's on full throttle because I'm not touching it. Not so good. I didn't see any fumes coming out the exhaust either. Right, so we'll come back to that. First thing to check would be spark. And the first thing to notice would be that the ignition cable's fallen off. Now, this has happened a few times. It isn't in very well there. I might try with some smaller cable that stays on the threads a bit better because it's tighter. But I have had a spark off this. I want to try and cast a shadow on it with my face so you can see. See if we can get a nice blue spark on it. And it's come out again. This is great. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so let's see if this sparks. We seem good there, don't we? So that's a good start. Next thing to test is if the fuel pump's working. So this involves dribbling fuel everywhere. So I'm going to put the spark plug back in and get back to you. So to check for fuel, the fuel pump would pump out of the, well, there's a pipe goes into the bottom of the fuel tank. Right next to the drain plug, and there's a little filter on it. I've already drained and replaced the fuel when I cleaned the carb, but I'll show you anyway. Into the fuel pump, which gets bad sometimes because it's a membrane one, especially if they've been sat for a while, they get kind of corroded. And then it goes through another pipe, up across the carb, and there's your return line. So the way I worked out whether or not it was pumping was simply to take the return line off and turn the engine over and see if fuel comes out. There we are, constant stream of fuel onto the floor. So we know that's good. If you do need a new membrane, they're only a couple of quid, so they're not the end of the world, but it's nice to have one that actually works. So, after I did that, I cleaned the carb. Now, to get to the carb on this, first I have to take off the airbox. One awesome looking nut. The French are good at designing interesting looking things, aren't they? Like motorbicane. Motorbicane stuff is just slightly fancier than the equivalent Austrian things and stuff like that. There's the whole airbox assembly. The air intake is useless. Air filter, sorry, look at that. Oh, that's going to stop loads of stuff. Oh well, seems to have done the job for years, so why change it? So there is the cylinder head, and that leaves us, I'll move the engine forward, that gives us room to fiddle with this. Now, that hole in the top there mates up with this on the bottom of the air filter. Nothing seems to use gaskets particularly on this. Then you've got this is your choke, and there's your choke intake, which is a jet in itself, so you can actually change the size of the choke by changing the jet. You've got all these linkages and gubbins on here and on there, which you don't want to lose, which is part of the reason I'm not going to actually go as far as to dismantle the carb this time, because once you take it off, it's a bugger to get back on. But essentially, it's now held on by this fuel line here, these two unions here, and the linkages and stuff at the top for the decompressor valve and all that. Decompressor's under here. So once you get that off, it's just basically two main tubes in there, a couple of cross tubes, jets and things, and then straight back on with it. So I've made sure that's nice and clean. Now I'll put the top back on and come back to you. So next thing to check, considering it still doesn't run, would be the timing. So because it's awesome and French, it's got this little thing here that says rupture on it, which I love, and it needs to line up with this little thing here, and that should be at the point where the points open. So let's line it up. I'll line it up with my eyes rather than the camera. Right, there we are. So there, if you can see it, I bet we're not going to focus on this. So they should just start coming apart now, which they do. So that is your rupture point, which is cool. So I was thinking then, it may be, that's your ignition advance sorted, so I may need to fiddle with the timing a bit more. We do have spark, but maybe there was something wrong with this. Incidentally, I also thought it might be something to do with the lighting coil shorting out, and the lighting coil is amazing. So your light switch is a little wire that comes off the back of the coil and a lever to make the contact. There's your actual switch contact right there. So that's on, that's off. How cool is that? So this bit of footage was filmed a couple of weeks ago when I was investigating the ignition timing, because I had a feeling that the timing was out and I couldn't work it out. So I've taken this off, and as you can see, that's the self-pulling flywheel mechanism, which I love and is one of the reasons these are renowned for being really well engineered. So as you can see, or maybe you can't see, the keyway in there, the key's actually sheared off. Now the job of this key is to keep the flywheel from moving on the shaft and knackering the timing up. Basically, it has to be in that one place because of the keyway. So that explains why it was sparking but not working. Now this is the original flywheel, and I tried lots of different methods to get the key out of there, but I think it's bonded basically. You can't really see, can you? But I had drills in there, I had files in there, I started scraping it out, but you can't seem to buy them anywhere. And I did eventually find a new one on French eBay for 20 quid, and it already had the key in, and the key doesn't seem to be removable, so that's cool. This is a puller, which you can buy for like 20 quid or something on eBay or at Solex shops, but actually the flywheels seem to come with them on anyway, so save your money. It's a self-extracting flywheel. So yeah, that's where we're at now. It's still not running. So the next thing I'm thinking is, I did put fresh-ish fuel in there, but that was a fortnight ago. It's been sat in the British heatwave that's going on at the moment. The fuel's probably gone bad. So I'm going to see if I've got any more fresh fuel. If not, I'm going to have to buy some and possibly try it again. I found some better petrol in the shed. It's not new by any means, but it's not going to be as old as this stuff, so I might as well show you how to drain the tank. Oh, incidentally, this is how warm it's been. This has been sat in the sun. Yeah, all of my bad fuel is evaporated and just left like Pook Maxi tank rust in there. Excellent. So I'm going to have to find a way to do this one-handed, or put you down. Let's put you down. Okay, so 10mm nut. No, it isn't. I've got to get something else. So let's try that again. A nut larger than 10mm. I've just cracked it off. Let's drain all this in. So we're still leaking a bit, but there's not a great deal came out there. It has now dripped all over the exhaust though, so that's going to be exciting. This is the drain plug. Focus, you sod. You can't really see in there, but I had to dig a load of crap out of there last time because it's sort of hollow. And the idea is that the filter sits in there. So I don't know if it actually has a filter or not. So let's look. Right, I'm going to turn the flash on. Nope, just a pipe. So that might be part of the problem. Maybe that bit's blocked, but it does seem to be flowing fuel quite well. So I'm just going to quickly turn the motor over to pump the rest of it out of the system. And then, well, no, sod it, I'm not going to bother. I'll just put some fresh in. Amusingly enough, I think this runs on 33 to 1 or 25 to 1, I can't remember now. That's still in really good nick, isn't it, from the 50s? The ones you get on your Tomos aren't as good as that, are they? If they've not fallen in the tank already. So there we are, the drain plug's back in, the fuel has been topped up. I've topped it up with 50 to 1. Now, there's a debate about whether old mopeds and stuff should be all run at 50 to 1, because obviously 1954 post-war two-stroke oil is going to be nowhere near as good as your modern synthetic stuff. I tend to like to run them on what it says to run it on. I don't know what this has got for crank bearing lubrication or anything like that. I imagine it's not got needle bearings in the crank. You know, it'll be all bronze bushings and things like that that need good lubrication. And I'd rather decoke it than unseize it. So that's kind of my take on it. So I'm going to take it out and see if I can get it to start now. Tried and failed to explain a minute ago is I'm going to try and start it on 50 to 1. And once I get it struck up and I know that it'll run, then I can adjust the ratio down, or up rather, to I think it's 25 to 1 it runs on. I'd rather try and start it with less oil in it, because it's had plenty of lubrication. It's dripping out of the exhaust at the moment, so there's probably a lot in the crankcase to burn off. And also, I think it could do with the extra octane in there, because obviously if you weaken the petrol mixture, it's less likely to fire, I suppose. That might just be my own ridiculous summary of it, or it might be true, I don't know. So I'm going to have to put the phone down when I actually do this, but basically I'm going to be holding that down on the engine with one hand, on the front wheel, sorry, and pedalling along with that, and then let go. The other thing I'm wondering about is, when this is lifted up, because this is a solid wire linkage here, which also looks like it's homemade to an extent, so it may not be adjusted right anyway, but perhaps it won't start when it's not in the down position because of this solid linkage moving the decompressor, well, not the decompressor, it's got plenty of compression, but moving the carb, I don't know. So let's give it a go. First thing to do is reattach the spark plug cable. And hope that that's alright. The problem with trying to start one of these is that it's very easy to do like a fat unfit fool. So there we are, that's all we've got time for today. I did think perhaps it wasn't sparking because it literally made no attempt to start at all. So without adjusting the spark plug cable at all, keeping it as still as possible, I've taken the spark plug straight out and watch. It's probably a better spark than it had before. So I may still change the ignition system, spark plug lead, things like that. It may well be to do with the spark gap in the points. Condensers can go funny, things like that. I might as well overhaul the whole lot because at the moment it's getting fuel. I mean, you know, if you turn that over, petrol comes out, so it may even be flooded. But I'll have another go at this next time I get wrenching time. I do have a few other bikes I want to get working on as well. I want to finish off the Peugeot, which I've finally got sprockets for. I'm just still trying to refurb the wheels, which has been a complete nightmare. The simplest things take the longest time. It's been 6 months. So there's that. Other upcoming ones, we have Tomos AT50, geared Tomos, yes. Jawa Type 23 Mustang, Manit Super Maxi Corrado thing, and probably more. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. If any of you have worked on one of these, particularly the early models like the 330 or the 45cc, that'll be more similar to this one, and can think of any troubleshooting I've missed. I'm a complete noob on these things. I've always wanted one, but so far this is the first chance I've had to tinker with one. So particularly anyone that's had experience with this specific type of bike, please let me know. I am an idiot. I may have missed something.